Good evening and welcome to your Sunday night edition of This Is Ibrox podcast. A weekend where Rangers haven't ruined the full week is always a bonus. I'm Iain Mitchell and I'm joined by Hef. Firstly, how are you doing? Fresh off Ibrox yesterday?
Buzzing. Good to see a win, as you said.
It's long overdue, yes. Tommy, of course, with us as well. Again, we're on pretty good spirits, Tommy. I'm sure you're the same.
It's nice to be on a podcast after a win and not come on with all the negativity. Maybe a bit of negativity, but not as much as last Sunday for sure.
Absolutely. I was working out myself. I think I've done 8 podcasts since we've last won a game, which let's hope that's not quite the same going forward. But we'll cover a few things tonight. Obviously, we'll touch on the game itself, the lineup, the comments afterwards, just the general feeling after it. I've had the Premier Sports draw today as well, which has got another Old Firm game to look forward to, I say hesitantly, and also everything else in between. So we'll jump straight to it. I know the guys covered the game yesterday, but 24 hours on. Hef, I'll start with yourself. If we look at the lineup yesterday, don't think there was anything too shocking in there. Maybe Mikey Moore getting a start is the only possible questionable thing in there, but good to see Cornelius come in. Anything else in that initial starting 11 that you thought was out of the ordinary?
Well, Raskin being back was quite out of the ordinary, but obviously it was the best option and everybody knew it was kind of coming. I thought that the decision to put on Mikey Moore, having played so poorly against Hearts, albeit I know he's young and we want to give him chances and stuff like that, but I didn't think he really did enough to merit off his performances to start again. I'm not saying he shouldn't have played, he could have came on, but to start the game again, probably not. Although I did think it was probably a better idea. Previous games we've moved Gassam to make allowances for Mikey Moore, but to actually switch Mikey Moore to play on the right wing was probably a better idea. You saw the difference when Gassam was playing on that side, making the wee triangle passes between Asgard and Raskin. I thought it looked really tidy up there. So no, I thought it was good. I wasn't too enamoured by Cornelius's performance overall, but I did think in terms of creating that balance, it probably did provide what we've been looking for the last few weeks.
Yeah, it seemed to me a bit more, I know we'll jump to the game also a lot more detail, but it just seems a bit more controlled and normal, having one Suter in his right place and then Cornelius just naturally left-footed. He just seems like quite a calming guy. Tommy, what do you think of, again, sort of the lineup and how we started the game? Because very early on, it was a little bit nervy. Obviously, the stadium, there was a protest and things like that, which we can come to, but the protest was what it was, kind of thing. You know, we knew it was going to happen. It happened, and from all accounts, it seems like it was pretty well managed, behaved. Nothing outrageous happened, which is obviously great to see. But for the game itself, Tommy, what did you think of the opening stages of that?
First of all, I thought the attendance was a lot better than what I was expecting. Obviously, a lot of empty seats, but I was expecting a lot more. So it was good to see people down supporting. Obviously, the first I was the same as Hef, when I saw the team. My big worry was, is Mikey Moore going to be on that left again, which would just be a big waste. And ultimately, we would have changed that at half-time anyway, like we did last week. Hibs had the first big chance, probably, and then obviously the disallowed goal as well. So that for me is probably still the concern, is giving up chances that are probably avoidable. But I thought out with that, we kind of grew in a little bit. It was a bit better. I still think it was below the standards of what we need, but obviously as a kind of, when we look at last week and then we look at this week, there was definitely an improvement. It wasn't a massive improvement, but obviously we need to tighten up a bit, giving away the chances. And I kind of thought when I was watching it, I was like, they're going to get a chance. They're going to get the first big chance. But thankfully, obviously it wasn't critical and we survived it, and obviously got a clean sheet in the end, which was nice as well.
Yeah, I think it was quite funny when that goal goes in. Don't worry, it wasn't funny, obviously, but when that goes in, I think we all had this same we knew that was going to happen. We knew Martin Boyle would score from one long ball over the top. No one was shocked by that. We'll come to that goal, with that disallowed goal, obviously. In the stadium, Hef, I don't imagine you were too sure what was going on at the time. Even looking back, we touched on it before we came live here. It's not the most obvious handball, but one thing we've spoken about for years as a club is the fact that we don't put pressure on referees, we don't put pressure on the media, on sort of SFA and that kind of thing. It's always been driven by the other half of the city, and we've seen how they maybe get decisions that we don't. It's not quite a conspiracy, but some people think it is. That goal that Boyle scores, do you think it's a handball? Because I'm still not certain. I'd be raging if it went against us, kind of thing. But secondly, and probably more importantly, do you think if the events of last week against Hearts don't happen, that goal does get disallowed, or is that just me sort of stirring the pot?
No, I don't think any referee is going to come out and admit that is the case. You know what I mean? They're not going to turn around and say, "Oh well, we better give them one this week." But when you think of the cataclysmic errors that they were that last week against Hearts, like for all three of them to be scrutinised, not just by Scottish referees but by English referees doing it on Sky Sports News and stuff. I saw Dermot. Oh, what's his name again? His second name. The guy who does the ref watch thing. He looked at all three of them and said that it was awful. Said that he couldn't understand how they were given. But to move on to this one, where I sit in the Copeland, it was quite hard to tell. I thought they were going to flag it back for potentially an offside because it was quite hard to tell. That kind of distance perception type thing of when somebody's there. But as the ball's going over, I think his hand is down at his leg, like we had said just before we started. If his hand is slightly up and it just catches his leg, I don't know if he does control it, but if he does, then the hand isn't even a question. I think the fact that his hand is down by his leg it's brilliant for us, but I think it's quite unlucky for him, really, because he's taking you heard it on the commentary when I came home. Yeah. The commentary is, beautiful touch and an excellent finish, which it is, but you don't actually recognise in the stadium at the time that his hand is down that way. As I said, I initially thought that they were checking for an offside. But like you were saying, Ian, see that before, I actually thought in the stadium that, okay, it is coming, here we go again. Because just before that, Bowie rounds the keeper and Boyle misses that sitter. He doesn't even hit it on target. So I know you had said that we went, the protest was what it was. I actually thought we started the game pretty well for the first 10 minutes. Then that protest happens. And then between that, I think there's maybe 7 or 8 minutes or something like that. Within that point, Bowie rounds the keeper, Boyle misses the sitter, and then Boyle has a disallowed goal. I think without the disallowed goal, we don't then kick on again. I think if it is a goal, I think the heads go down and the stadium's again on top of the players. But I think that actually did give us that boost. And I think if you revert back to the Hearts game, those three decisions that go against us, the Shankland one in particular, and then the goal that should have stood because there's no real challenge on the keeper whatsoever to merit it not being a goal. I think that puts us back in the game. So it does show that these decisions do have an impact on the kind of tide turning in the game. And that, again, I'm a bit like yourself, but even when you listen to David Martindale's comments during the week, and he's talking about it's not just us, we're spending millions of pounds on this refereeing equipment for referees to go and do training on it. And what's it going to take? Are we going to get to a point where there's just cameras watching the game and an official there just to kind of make sure that people don't batter each other? Is that the way it's going to get? Because I don't think for a minute the referee sees the handball. I don't even think that the linesman probably sees it. It's someone in the ear. So it's quite...
It's as well, just to jump in a little bit, the fact that I hadn't seen it too often that they've gave it as a factual overturn, was the quote given on the commentary. Even the most obvious decisions these days, unless it's offside, obviously tends to send the ref away, have a look, and they make that sort of joint decision of, that's a handball, although that's not, kind of thing. This was just that's a handball, free kick, play on. I don't know if that's a new thing they're doing just to speed up the game a little bit, which I think we'd all appreciate a little bit. But just like last week at Hearts, I'd still want the ref going over for a second look just to kind of confirm that opinion. Because like I say, if that's against us, which next week, the way football goes, it could easily be us on the receiving end of that. And I'm still in a position where I don't know what handball is anymore, whether it's in the box, out the box, this part of your arm, down the bottom of your arm. I just don't think anyone really knows. Tommy, I'm sort of stealing Hef's thunder a little bit there. He was saying it himself. But if that does become 1-0 Hibs, as the commenter flashed up a moment ago from Andrew, says as well. The first goal is so important for this team at the moment. I think yesterday was testament to that. Obviously, the protests are going on, the feeling in the stadium, even before we conceded that goal, it's a bit tense. Everyone's a bit unsure of how things are going to go. If that goes 1-0 Hibs, I don't think we come back from that. Are you the same?
No, I agree, but and we've seen it weeks and weeks now that we kind of struggle to get back into the game when we do start. We might have a little spell, but I think scoring first was important, absolutely. But then I touched on it the other week. The position that we should be in is scoring the first goal. Like I look back to when we did win the league, and a lot of the games were done by half time. Like that would be a lovely position to get back in. So see being 2-0 up at half time makes such a big difference to the second half, because one, you can just manage the game a lot easier. You're not making changes to try and get back into a game and then it becomes frantic. You control the game a lot better when you're up. So that second half was just managed to see out the win, really, rather than flinging players on. We're trying to get a goal. Again, we can give minutes to players as well. I say Chermiti coming on and Barron I thought Barron was quite well when he done quite well when he came on as well. So first goal, huge. I've always said it. It's the same when we play Celtic. I always feel if we get the first goal, we win. Or at least we get a result. Like I say, if we go 1-0 down against Celtic, I feel like we never really come back, but it doesn't just extend to Celtic. I just feel in general, if we go down, it is tough to get back for us.
Yeah, especially how fragile, as I say, this squad is just now. There's so many new guys just learning what Ibrox is like, what Rangers is like. I think you kind of saw that boost come from that goal. Hef will go to that goal just now. We weren't creating very much during the game. I don't think it was anything great until that point. It wasn't like we were knocking the door down, the goalies making saves. Nothing like that was really happening. It was more just that kind of classic going through the motions in a lot of ways. Players not sure where to go, not really creating chances, but one good corner, one good header, and of course it had to be Raskin. Again, I almost forgot about the fact that he came into the team right at the start of this, because it's been such a topic of debate for months and weeks. Now it's a case of we've finally got probably our best player back in the team, and even before his goal, I think we saw what a difference he makes to the team in general. But that goal itself, I'll let you talk us through it, but it was much needed, as Tommy touched on there.
It's weird as well, because leading up to the corner, I thought as if the game was just kind of going through the motions. Hibs were quite dominant, probably more like Cornelius gives away that foul just on the edge of the box, and you feel as if if they're not going to score again, it's going to go to 0-0. And I had kind of had that kind of check in my head of being like, in years gone by, being 0-0 against Hibs 30 minutes into the game and in a quarter final, with the amount of fans that they had brought and stuff like that, I actually wasn't too disheartened. I was like, right, okay, we can still kick on here. But again, it was that level of performance. You didn't think that we were going to do it. But I actually thought, even just take the goal out of it, I thought throughout the game we were really dangerous in corners. Some of the deliveries and some of the challenges we scrapping about as the second ball bounced, I thought that we were actually pretty good at corners. I don't know if that is something that we've worked on, but it looked as if it was, because we looked a bit more threatening. Raskin scored that same goal that he did at Parkhead, and you think to yourself, who, in Raskin's absence, whose role was that supposed to be, to get in there and be dangerous in that front post section? Because I didn't see anybody else doing it in Raskin's absence. I didn't see Rothwell in there. I didn't see Diamande up there jumping, trying to get into the front post. It just seemed as if for weeks on end it was, can it get by the first man? And if it does, when will it be cleared out? Because we've got nobody in there to actually feasibly put in an effort. I actually thought he takes the goal well, and then you see the players' pressure just lift off them straight away.
Yes.
And you saw players making passes and making movements that before that goal they just don't make, because they're too frightened.
They wanted the ball. And it's so simple, and you expect every professional footballer wants the ball to show off what they can do, but I've not seen that, bar a couple of games this season at best. So that was the big thing for me. That was the exciting part there.
Aye, absolutely. And as you said, it's a good corner. It's no anything special. It's a good delivery
Quite
to the
basic,
front post for a player who's in that position to run off. The chances are all the big boys are going to get marked, so the chances of them getting a goal are probably slim to none. So you look for a wee player like Raskin to nip in at the front post and do something. The fact that he's done it twice in not so many games, really consistently, considering that game was at the tail end of last season. What's worrying is that that'll probably be watched now, and Raskin's runner will be marked every time. But in terms of for yesterday, I thought it was a carbon copy, the one for Parkhead, and it's clearly something, a role, if it's not just for Raskin, but if it's somebody in that position that can do it going forward, brilliant. I'd rather see us have some sort of success. Like Tommy had messaged into the chat, a goal from open play for the second one, but see if we can get goals for corners. We get enough of them. Punish teams. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's very true. Look at Arsenal down south.
I'm into Arsenal, yeah.
That's going to steal it from you.
The game plan.
Absolutely. Hey, it works. And when you've got a team who are so devout of confidence and not quite clicking up front, if you can nick a 1-0 from a corner or a free kick, I'll take it all day. Tommy, just after the goal, there is a moment, I think, it's not been mentioned very much, but Hibs have a pretty glaring chance from a Boyle header that just goes wide. Big chance. Obviously, if that goes 1-1, the stadium is again, understandably angry, and that little bit of confidence and belief would drain away again. So it's a big miss. I was going to say, how big a miss do you think that is? But a sort of second point to this, right after that, you see Cornelius and Michoma argue with each other about whose man that was or who should have been that. Now, that's a kind of nothing moment, but as we touched on a moment ago, that's something that I've not seen very much this season in terms of we lose a goal or even just a big chance. There's never the finger point, there's never a blame, a bit of accountability. I was cheering that as much as I was cheering the goals at times, because that's just a bit of leadership at the back that Cornelius brought. But again, I say that the offset, do you think if that goes 1-1 again, we're back to the square one?
Yeah, and I think we maybe got a bit lucky because it was a good ball in, I think from the left, and I think it hits his shoulder rather than his head, and it goes wide. I don't actually think it's a header. It's kind of like here. But yeah, I think you want to see that. You want to see guys that care. You want to see guys that want to be organised. And what I say though, like the chances shouldn't really be happening from it. But I feel like there's a lot of panic sometimes when the ball does come in, and we're not as organised as what we should be. But if we've got guys in there that want to fix that and are going to challenge each other, then that's what you want, rather than that happening and there's no reaction to it. Everybody's okay with it in a way. You want to see players react to it. You want to see players recognise, right, what went wrong there? How do we fix it for the next time this ball comes in?
I was going to jump in as well because it's a point I wanted to mention earlier. We've obviously been praising Raskin's performance a little bit so far, and I'm sure we'll continue to do so. And I don't want it to be lost the fact that he has made some mistakes this season, and there's not been a perfect attitude from him, I guess, at least at times. But not only is what he does on the ball massive to this team, but in that same sort of leadership way, even for the Boyle goal, Raskin's the one at the referee complaining at him and kind of putting the idea in his head, and it's a dark arts kind of thing. He's the guy that wants to win. He's the guy that probably wants a clean sheet as much as the defence. I think what he brings in that sense is massive as well. Tommy, the second goal, a little bit fortunate how it falls to Majowski, but it's decent play to get there, of course. What did you make of that second one?
I think, again, it actually comes from Raskin, which I think he plays the ball in to Mikey Moore. What I noticed with Raskin being back yesterday was he's a really good link, kind of when we have the overload in the left and the right. So he actually supports both sides very well. It's not just sticking to one side. We could maybe have a situation where Raskin is more right, Dio on the left, but you see Raskin kind of coming over to the left and the right. So when we are going down, he's such a great link between that kind of area of the play, which I really liked yesterday and thought made a big difference. Because when you've got Barron in there, I don't think Barron really goes and links the play in there the way Raskin does. But yeah, again, I thought Mikey Moore got into a good position. I don't think he had a great game. I thought he was a bit passive. Obviously, it was probably a better moment in the game for him, but obviously it's great to see Majowski get his first goal as well. Kind of typical poacher goal that we were probably used to seeing at his time at Aberdeen as well. So I thought it was well worked, but yet again, it comes from Raskin initially. I think he kind of creates the chance.
Yep, that's spot on. Hef, again, Tom makes a good point there. The fact Majovski's where he should be, which we're not always doing. Basically, I took a screenshot of the goal just as a lead up because you have Majovski there, you have Gassama, Asgard, obviously Mikey Moore's in the box, and I think Tav's in the box as well. That's 5 guys in the box, which I think we did do a bit more yesterday, especially that second half. And it's not rocket science. You put guys in the box, you'll have a bit more chances in the box. But again, in the stadium, did you feel that bit more attacking threat from us just in general, especially second half, I'm thinking here?
I just to pick on what Tommy had said, I do think Raskin makes that kind of critical pass to then maybe make it more of a chance. But I think prior to that, I would have said that it actually starts maybe a few plays before that. Magoma is out on the left wing and he's got the ball and you're looking at him thinking, what's he going to do here? I think before 1-0, he plays, like I was saying earlier on, he plays that safe, he plays it back and it goes round the houses again, back, centre back, right back, into centre mid, back to centre back. I've seen it a million times, you could do it in our sleep. But Magoma, doesn't he? He takes that gamble and he makes it looks as if he tries to pass the ball forward to Gassam. Gassam then passes it into Raskin. I actually think that without Magoma's decision making in that on the left wing, Raskin doesn't get the ball to play it to Mikey Moore. And I think that was the sign of the pressure has lifted now. Let's just play football. Let's actually make the forward pass. And I saw Martin in the interview saying, we're kind of waiting on that perfect pass to get it through and break the molds. But like you said, Iain, if you've got 5 and 6 bodies contending to be in the box and actually attack the play, it doesn't always need to be the perfect ball. It just needs to be a well-weighted pass into a good area and try and hope that something gets on the end of it, a deflection onto Majovski's feet or something. Because I don't know about you, but I don't think Mikey Moore's is a pass. I think he's shot.
No, it deflects over.
It's definitely shot. So
I think that's
poor decision making probably. If we're being really critical of Mikey Moore, I don't really want to go down that route because it's led to a goal. So you can if he's in that position to take the shot, brilliant. I don't think at that point in the game, a couple of minutes before half time, if it's still 0-0, I think we're seeing that half out 0-0 and not really busting the net trying to get the second one. But I thought it looked really, really good that we were pressing, trying to get up the park and trying to get the second goal. And it was actually really nice to see some of the younger players be able to play without that kind of monkey on their back and just have a bit more creative freedom just to express themselves a bit more.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point, especially when you touch on going for the second, but then the second half starts and it's going for the third. But I think we see Gassama hit the bar pretty early on in that half with a long range shot when he just drops his shoulder from left wing, which he does, and it's almost unstoppable in terms of him getting into that position, and he's got the qualities. He's just obviously really unlucky, but beyond that, you have Majovski's one that comes off the line. He's then offside from the corner, so there's chances, and that's all we've been asking for weeks now. We've seen the slow passing up the back. We've seen the lack of XG stats that have been coming at us, the 2 or 3 shots on target per game. Yesterday was pretty dominant, especially second half, and we're maybe glossing over a couple of negatives in amongst all this, but I think the last few weeks that we've had, we just need a kind of positive performance like this just to give us something back, and we'll come on to whether that changes anything long-term for the manager in time. But again, Tommy, the second half, it's a bit of a boring question here, but it was pretty impressive, wasn't it?
Yeah. Mike, like you were saying there, rather than going for the second goal, going for the third. I thought to touch on Hef as well, I thought Makoma was really good yesterday, especially in the second half. And I think driving forward, we've not seen that from him. We have seen a bit more of a reserved kind of player, a bit more passive. And I thought yesterday overall, there still was moments in the game where we were doing that, centre back to centre back and whatnot. But I thought it was a bit less than it was last weekend, which was good. We were getting the ball forward more and kind of staying with it forward, which is where we should be. But the second half, like I say, when you're 2-0 up, you can take your foot off the gas a bit, which is good kind of for the rest of the season as well. Because like I touched on before, if you're putting all your energy into a second half to try and claw a game back that you're 1-0, 2-0 down. You're using more energy, your stamina's down more, and for the rest of the season, you're probably more likely to be tired for injuries and stuff like that. So if we can be in a more consistent space of being up, kill games, see it out. It doesn't need to be fancy if you're 2-0 up. You know, I'm totally happy to kill games and see it out. We still did create chances, like you said, which is good. But like I say, it's good that we had more shots on target, more kind of dangerous attacks than last weekend anyway. So it's definitely a step in the right direction.
Absolutely, yeah. One guy I've not really spoke about too much is Chermiti. You mentioned subs come on during the game. He was the one I was quite keen to give a chance to, because I think a lot of people have wrote him off just because of that fee. He also didn't have the best cameo last week either against Hearts, didn't have too much involvement, but yesterday I think we saw a little bit more. Again, I'm still seeing people saying that he should score that chance that he goes running through on. His link-up play wasn't great. I think he fell over the ball a few seconds after coming on as well. Hef, did you see anything from Chermiti that gave you a bit of excitement? And I think the good thing, just before I come to you, is the fact that Mai obviously scores, and that's obviously looks like our main striker right now. So Chermiti has that little bit less pressure on him to deliver right away. But for £8 million, I think people want a hat trick, even if you're playing 50 minutes or not right now.
It's hard to say when he's only playing so few minutes. Do you know what I mean? But I actually thought the boys spoke really well about it in the post-match interview at the end of it, and they said you're bringing on a player at that stage in the game when there's not a lot of balls going forward and we're not really gambling to put balls into the box and create a lot of flooding, pressing men forward or anything like that. So the one chance he does get, I do think it's just quite unlucky. I think it's quite a good save. I don't necessarily think expecting a player to run a man for 40 yards and then slip it into the bottom corner. I think if we had a player for that, it would be spending a lot more than £8 million on him. I think I saw a player like that just start a few hours ago there for Man City. So I don't think we're expecting someone of his stature. We've got to remember, probably the one thing I would take away from what I would say is something that excites me about it is the fact that he looks a big unit of a player. And I think that is something that we're missing. I think that physicality, I think Miovski's no fool. I think he looks strong enough. I think he looks technically good on the ball and stuff like that. But in terms of another option, I think Chermiti is taller. I would be hard to say necessarily whether or not he's stronger, but he certainly shifts it for a big guy as well. I mean, it wasn't as if that boy came in and swooped the ball straight off him. He puts him off and he still gets a shot away. I don't think he's really expected to do much more than that. We've seen better players come to Ibrox and have easier chances, more wide open chances than that, and sky it over the bar or smash it right at the keeper. He places it perfectly fine. And actually, it's credit to the Hibs goalie to still be putting in that much effort at that stage in the game, knowing that really it's probably not going to make that much of a difference overall to the outcome of it. So I think it's been harsh to say that he absolutely has to score it. It would be great if he scored it, but I don't think it's not a shooty-in one. It's not, oh well, that's him then, £8 million down the drain. But he's never going to be able to lose that price tag. I think that's going to follow him forever, but that's not necessarily his fault. However, it would be good to see if we are going to pay that amount of money for him, when are the games that we're going to see him start? When are we going to give him a chance to come on? Is it going to be that he plays more of the European games and kind of the Daniel Kuzan role and let Miovski do the domestic games? I had said that on the first pod, it would be really, really good to see us have that switch between a European squad and a domestic squad and be able to perform on both levels with different styles of play. It would be interesting to see if Chermiti takes on that role as more of the European striker and let Miovski focus domestically. But time will tell. I would like to see more of Chermiti to prove doubters wrong and actually give him a chance to see or show what he's worth. But at this point in time, it would be pretty hard to say either way whether or not he was good or bad.
It's true. It's true. And there's a few comments kind of backing that up as well. And by all means, keep the comments coming. Plenty of people watching live as well. So just the usual little plug for liking the video, subscribing. But this comment from CGM here, there's a couple of them from him I'm going to bring up. Firstly, it was a straightforward finish. They had a big area to hit. I think that is still kind of true, to be honest. I'd want a little bit more, but the second comment saying it was a Dessers finish has given me some PTSD there, so I want to try and move on from that as swiftly as possible. The other sub that came on and had a bit more impact, Tommy, was Oliver Antman, a guy who I think has been quite unlucky to not be starting games last few weeks. He's not been as good as he was in his debut, I think we'll have to say, but he's a new guy finding his feet at a new club, just like the rest of them. Probably not had the chances that Mikey Moore's had, is that kind of direct position comparison, but that run at the end sort of, I don't want to say Messi-esque, but I have said it. Slalom through a few players, decent finish. Obviously, unlucky goes to the wrong side of the post, but it's a little flavour of what he can hopefully bring to this team as well.
Yeah, I think the only difference with Messi is Messi would probably put the ball in the back of the net.
Maybe.
But yeah, no, I was surprised to not see him start, and I think especially after Mikey Moore was so bad last weekend, I was kind of expecting Antman to start, and it's more natural to have Gassam on the left and Antman on the right, which I think when we signed him is what we were probably looking at the starters being, rather than having an 18-year-old boy kind of relying on that kind of style of play. But I liked Antman when he came on. Again, that run was brilliant. We want to see more of that. We want to see players that want to get the ball direct and kind of like what Ryan Kent was like, but maybe with if we can get like a Ryan Kent style player, but with the numbers, with the assists, with the goals, which probably Ryan Kent at times probably lacked a little bit, but Ryan Kent was always capable of picking the ball up and driving and kind of putting teams on the back foot. So if Antman can do that, then that would be lovely. It was a lovely run. It was I think it was a nice little nutmeg, wasn't it? And then a left foot just went wide. But I think going into Thursday, I think we should see him start, especially if it's between him and Mikey Moore. I think we should see Antman rather than Mikey Moore, because I think Mikey Moore needs to take a few games on the bench now, and until he can come off the bench and kind of show a bit from that, I don't think he should be in the starting 11 until that point. He's not really done anything to merit starting. Like a few people have said in the comments, is it something in his own contract? That I don't really think you can put anything in own contracts like that. Personally, I've never really heard of anything like that before. That a player plays.
From like a football manager point of view, it made me think of it like that's how accurate is that game, but there's certain ones you can a certain age if they play a certain game time. That kind of stuff.
I feel like Tottenham could maybe recall the loan if we haven't played X amount of games. So, but we shouldn't be worried about that. We shouldn't be playing them on that basis. We should be playing the players that deserve to be playing, which at the moment I think is Antman, and someone's just said Curtis as well. I probably would rather Curtis in there too, to be honest, the way that the start of the seasons went and what we've seen.
It's good options, to be fair, isn't it? Because like Hef was saying, like where does Chimity get a start? It could be on Thursday night, but you then go to Livingston on Sunday, which it's quite nice that I think we'd be quite keen to see Chimity start. We'd also be linking the fact of Antman getting a start. Curtis, we want more game time for. We know Moore has talent, and that's just one position at right wing. We know Gassama's kind of got left wing to himself, so it's nice to have options up there for once. I
don't want to see anybody else take that left wing. If Gassama's going on the right wing, then the game's gone. That's it.
That's fine. Hef, that's our first win since August the 16th against Alloa. That's 5 weeks ago. It's a big win for Russell Martin, and the question of the podcast is pretty simple. Does that take any pressure off Russell Martin? I think most people that I've seen sort of tweeting and talked to since the game are still pretty much in the Martin out, train, we'll say. But there was a poll on the sort of match report from BBC just yesterday, and it was, does this game take the pressure off Russell Martin? And I think it was 32% said yes. That's higher than I thought it would be, to be honest.
Who's voting on that?
No, yeah, that's the thing. It's not us. A couple other fans, yes. So, Hef, does this take any pressure at least off Russell Martin? Does it give a baby step into what we can be seeing further forward?
I don't think it puts any more pressure on him. I don't necessarily think it takes any off, but it certainly doesn't put more. I think he had to go out there and win to be in any sort of position that these protests wouldn't get heightened. Do I think the protests will probably stop? No. I think there will be more protests to try and get rid of them. But in terms of taking that action a wee bit step further and doing further protests, maybe, I don't know how you would tighten it, but more disruptions during the game or things like that, or I don't know, boycotting games and stuff like that, then yeah. But I think everybody who's sitting here would probably still be saying that he's not the answer based off of what we've seen so far. But I don't think yesterday it doesn't do him any harm. You know, I think it's only going to be a positive for him. The fact that we've now got, not even the fact that we're through, but now that we know that we've got another Old Firm to look forward to, does that put more pressure on him to get rid of so that we can get someone in place for that, so that we don't lose another option of silverware or another opportunity for silverware rather? Or is it a case of, right, okay, well, we know he's not going to get rid of him very easily, because we've clearly, if we were in the sort of situation where we were going to get rid of the manager easily, he would have been gone after Hearts. So maybe as a fan base, we do need to just kind of realise that this is what we're going to be stuck with for at least a little bit of time. However, I think that, as you said, if he wins on Thursday, I just saw someone's comment there, if he wins on Thursday and then wins again on Livingston, I think that pressure starts to lessen more and more. And as he keeps saying himself, as soon as we start to win games, we'll not be talking about it. You know, we'll just be focusing on the next game and trying to move on. I don't think anybody would be wanting to go to games, or I'd like to think that people wouldn't be wanting to go to games to see Rangers get beat. But I had seen a few people saying, "Oh, it'd be good to get beat so that he could go."
Yeah.
I always want Rangers to win, and I don't care if Martin's the manager or not. So if the board are going to back him, I'm not going to be happy about it, but I'm still going to seek for Rangers to win every single time. So I'm not going to put any more pressure on him necessarily, as long as he keeps winning.
I think I've left that comment up because I think it's a really important if that's in there, because if we win Thursday, you'll get a couple more saying, "Oh, that's good," but then it'll be, right, you need to win Sunday. Then you need to win the Sunday after. Then the Wednesday.
Yeah,
it's got to that point for me.
How long does that go on until he's
No,
safe?
it's very true. It's the same position that Bale was in, that Clement was in, where when the majority have turned, and I think more have turned on Martin than he ever turned on those guys. When this many have turned, you don't win them back. Like you could win 10, 15 games in a row, lose one, and everyone's like, "Oh, see, I told you this would happen." I think that's just a natural stage that we're at, which might be a little unfair, but this comment again from Luke kind of confirms it. One poor result from Anarchy, he needs to be flawless for a few months. I think that's really spot on, because I look at some of his comments yesterday, and Tommy, I'll come to you with some of Russell Martin's feedback. He's mentioned how the team looked how we wanted it to look. Areas to improve, of course, but proud of the group. To do that in those circumstances isn't easy. They've been amazing this week. Bit of time to coach and work on important stuff has been so helpful. You know, it's pretty obvious stuff, but I think another line he said was that the team looked coached. You know, I think that's a little bit of a dig back at the fan media comments from the week before. Obviously, it's still obviously got to him quite a lot, that one, I think. But again, from your point of view, has that win changed anything at all? Is there a slight bit more hope in your eyes?
I think, like what you touched on as well, when Bale and Clement were on the way out, you still did have a bit of a divide, maybe, where people were saying, "No, we don't want him sacked." But I think, like, overall, this is the biggest majority of people that I've seen that do want him gone. Personally, me, yes, I want him gone. While he's still the manager and the board come out and say that they're going to support him, I'll support him to do well and to provide a team that's going to win games. I agree with what Luke Gibson there has put in. Like, I touched on this in one of our group. I don't know if it was the group chat I'm in with you, Iain, but I said that it pretty much needs perfection from now on. You know, the fans are obviously fed up. We saw that by the protest yesterday outside the ground, and then obviously continuing into the ground as well, getting the game delayed.
That gave me a lot of fear. I know we didn't really touch on that too much there, but I thought that was going to be like every 10 minutes there was something. You know, it was like bouncy balls 1 minute, it would be like eggs. I don't know. Just thought it'd be more disruption.
I personally don't like that part. I don't mind the protests outside the ground. Okay, that's completely fine, right? And at the end of the day, though, Martin knows that we want him to go, right? The board know that we as fans want him to go, right? So what are we doing by getting the game stopped? He knows that, the board know that, we've said all this. We had a fan advisory board meet with the board this week as well. Like they're well aware of the situation. I just think as a player, you see that, like that sort of support for the manager, and then 10 minutes, like Hef said, we kind of started the game all right until that kind of stop. I don't like that part of it, and at the same time, we've got to remember that this is just a guy that's at his work. You wouldn't want to go to work yourself and have big displays of people telling you to go. You know what I mean? It's just as a kind of human being level, it's not nice either. You can say that you want the guy out, but I just think some of the chants are a bit OTT. But I'm marking out myself just to reiterate,
Did I save yourself in the comments?
I don't. Yeah. I don't think. I don't think it saved them. I don't think winning one cup game. And what we've got to remember is, we started this weekend in 10th, we're finishing it in 11th. So if anything, the league position is still dropping. So we need to get back to it in the league. Like I said, we need to see where we're at. If we're going to stick with him, we need to see what position we're in, maybe come Christmas time, or even when we come towards the semi-final, and see if anything's different at that point.
Yeah, I think it's very key, because a lot of people were saying if you got the League Cup here, you're basically relying on a good Scottish Cup run, and that could be over in 190 minutes. So, yeah, I don't think people overestimated how big that win was yesterday, and then the fact that we've played pretty well. I don't want to go over the top again, but played decent. I think if that's any other season, you look at Hibs coming to Ibrox with, as Hef touched on earlier, that following, they're in decent form. Again, they're a good team for this level, obviously, this league, but they didn't pose as much of a threat overall. Pretty solid performance, very controlled performance. That second half especially, it's the first we've really had the opportunity to do that since maybe that Pilsen home game where we've been in full control and just managed things out. It's a lot of positives. And, for a season that we've had, I think Russell Martin's quite right to not take the plaudits from that, because he's not been the most open to the criticism, I think. I'm just looking at a few more of his comments from yesterday, and he obviously gets asked a little bit Raskin, Hef. A couple of good signs in there, the little cuddle as they're walking off the pitch. He waits behind for him for the high five. It's all very PR trained guys. They know what they're doing just to make sure. I think Russell Martin actually goes to turn away and walk down the tunnel because Raskin's laughing up the applause and thinks, oh no, hang on, that could be a headline. So wait, get the high five.
He's a camera.
For the gram.
He's plays spot for the gram. But he does say he thinks myself and Nico will be disappointed how it's gone on. Contrary to popular belief, we have a really good working relationship. Not sure about that. I'm proud of him today. He was fantastic, and hopefully we as coaches have found a position that works for him. So a little bit of praise for himself there, playing him not as number 6, where I don't think he suits a number 6. I know that's the debate, and he plays there for Belgium, and I get that, it's true, but he's playing in Belgium with guys that are kind of levels above him, with no disrespect to him. In Scotland, we want him to run a game, and I don't think he can run a game as a number 6 just now. It doesn't get the best out of him, kind of thing. I think he's a sort of big winner from yesterday as much as Russell Martin is, because yes, we all wanted him back in the team. Yes, we've all said he's probably our best player, but you didn't have to go and show that. And, he's probably first name in the team sheet for me right now, Hef. I'm sure you're very similar thinking.
I don't think there's many number 6s in world football that dictate games unless their role is the maestro to play to other players who can play better than them. Think of Makalele, Rodri, all these other players that just sit and dictate the play. It's because they're firing in balls to, I don't know, Silva or any of these other players that are technical players and can get on the ball and do it. Do we have a better player than Raskin that Raskin can fire the ball to create more and give more drive? I don't think so. So I would sooner see someone in there. Diamande played really well yesterday as the 6 and drifting between a 6 and almost like a second 8, just drifting as and when it needed, rather than just sitting there doing the John Lundstrom statue route, just going, I will not move beyond the halfway line. There is sometimes the centre halves were asking him to push up a wee bit. Diamande was going forward when he needed to, but has that energy to get back and in position to dictate and spray the ball out when he needed to, and I thought that was really important. But the comment about we have a good professional relationship is just a way of saying, I really don't like him, but we've figured out a way that we can work together. Like the colleague in your work that you know is actually pretty good at their job, but you actually hate them and can't stand the sight of them. But yeah, we'll get on for the sake of the next couple of shifts if it gets us to the bonus. But no, I thought that seemed. I actually thought when Raskin answered the question, it looked like a very, very clever and well-worked media answer in that way where it was, that's in the past now. Let's move forward. I actually thought, especially when he opened it by saying, eventually, or whatever it was that he came back and saying, like, when it was like, oh, you're finally back, finally, or something like that. That's what he'd said. When he started it like that, I thought, oh, no, he's going to get dropped again if he keeps this batter up. But then when he ended it like that, I thought, brilliant. I actually thought, good, that is the sign of a bit of maturity. And as he said, Martin's done stuff that he's probably not going to be proud of later down the line. He probably feels like he could have handled it better. Raskin, we don't know the ins and outs of what's happened. Obviously, we've all read multiple WhatsApp screeds to say that he's apparently working for the KGB and leaking documents all over Europe, but we don't actually know any of that. And I prefer it that way. I'd rather that it stayed behind closed doors so long as he's on the pitch. The problem before was we didn't know anything. Raskin wasn't playing, and you think it must be something significant if a player of his quality has been out the team. So, yeah, I'm glad that Raskin's back in, but I don't think it looks as if they're going to be sitting down having a lovely meal together any time in the West End, sharing coffees at Eusebi Deli or anything like that.
It's baby steps. Every department of this club just now is taking baby steps, and that's certainly one of them. Tommy, the last sort of thing Martin said that I want to bring up is that he's mentioned it gives the players something tangible to feel and something to build on. We've got a big game Thursday and a semi-final now to look forward to. I think that players thing is massive because we've just mentioned, obviously, as we've gone on tonight, that Gassama looked better, Raskin was good, Majovski gets his goal, McComa's probably best performance so far, Cornelius was good. All these positives, but I think from an individual player level, that must give you something like, right, we played quite well. The fans were good, obviously, from the goal on especially. Fans are with the team, applauded them off. Probably the first time they've been applauded off at Ibrox for a lot of them, which, 4 or 5 weeks once the transfer window shut, that's quite a big statement thing. So how do you think the players feel now? Obviously, a crazy week last week in terms of the swimming in Loch Lomond, the hill walks, all that chaos is hopefully now behind us as well. Do you think they have that newfound belief that there's something here at least?
Potentially that could have done good for the team as well in terms of bonding away from.
Got any comments about it come for you hard tonight, by the way?
But like I say, and I mean, every club, and actually Brendan Rodgers touched on that. Maybe he was trying to support Martin in sort of like a backwards way, but every club will do stuff like that. Probably the issue was the nature of where we're at just now and the publicity of it, was probably the bad part. If that was done in private, it would have been a completely fine thing to do, but then obviously if someone plasters it on X and that's it. I did see a bit more of a togetherness. Again, we touched on earlier, Iain, about sort of like from that chance that Boyle had and kind of wanting to sort out that situation. So probably better communication between the players, and just definitely was a kind of a better atmosphere, a less toxic atmosphere out with the protest as well, which was good. Like I say, it's what you want to see. You want to see the players getting clapped off. Nobody wants to be booing. People might want Martin gone, but ultimately we want to see a Rangers team that win. We want to see a Rangers team that we do clap off the park. We don't want to be, I'm waiting to 90 minutes so I can boo these guys. Nobody wants to be that kind of person. So it was good to see that. It was good to see. Like I say, it's good to come on a podcast as well after a win and actually be a bit positive for once. So I'm definitely happy with it.
I'm pretty sure you told me after the Hearts game you only stayed to boo, but I'll swimmingly move away from that.
I did stay to boo. I did. I was like, I'm staying to boo.
I think everybody did.
Hef, that's now League Cup semi-final. Obviously, draws came out today, and we got Celtic in that. I don't know how I feel about that personally. An Old Firm game is always exciting, but I just like to have a bit more confidence in ourselves, albeit we know they're not perfect. But how important do you think this trophy? Again, I'm jumping ahead to the final already, but how important could this trophy be to the team, the players, and us as fans? Because it's an interesting time with this. I think the final's mid-December. It's a very strange tournament in that sense. But do you think that could be a bit of a goal, a short-term goal for this team? Obviously, every Rangers team is going to have the goal of win every trophy. That's just natural. But especially this one, how soon that could be pretty decent success must be exciting.
I think it would show quite a remarkable turnaround from the protests, and if he does go on to do that, right, say we're talking hypotheticals here, if he does push on and we get by Celtic and we go on and we beat either St Mirren or Motherwell in the final, you wonder then, do you then commend Russell Martin? Again, I'm not trying to get voted out here like Tommy, man. This could be a kill for this Is Ibrox newcomers. But if we do, then surely that is a remarkably headstrong guy to take on that level of criticism at that high intensity, to then in the space of 2 months or 3 months go on and win his first major silverware. I think that would be enough for me. I mean, I think even if we're winning by then, I think that would be enough for a lot of people to turn their heads the other way. But I think at that point that would be enough for me to actually say, do you know what, fair enough, because that was toxic that first few weeks of the season, and to overcome that, fair play. I think it would be incredible for him to do that, and I think it would earn him quite a lot of respect and buy him quite a lot of credit. And the problem that we had with Clement and other managers in the past was they started quite well, and then by the time that we were looking to get rid of them, people were saying, oh no, but we were good back then, or we bought him and it didn't quite work out, he's injured. It's not his fault that all the players are sitting on the injury bench. And Russell Martin's not had that. We've had a fully fit squad pretty much since he's came in. He's not had the excuse that Clement had about all these crocs that were lying on the physio table, albeit we've still got some, but I think we're looking at Martin thinking you've got a full profile there to pick from. You've got the whole squad and we're still not seeing it. So I think if he was to push on and get to that sort of position, 100%, I would be questioning fans if at that point people were still saying they wanted him out, because I'd be like, you clearly just are jealous of him. Like, you're jealous if he's, I don't know, his dashing good looks or something like that.
Or his missus, possibly. Yes.
And his missus, yeah.
Yes. Tommy, the placement of this game is quite key now, because we're going to play Celtic probably the Sunday. I think we were talking about before. Just tends to be that early game the Sunday, obviously. We play Hibs away at Easter Road the Wednesday before, and then Thursday following that we have Roma at home. So massive games, especially if you look at the league, we're going to be clawing points back. I don't think, even being unsure where we'll be at that point, I don't think we can afford to go away to Hibs and lose. We probably can't afford to lose any game, but the league's always priority. European games are massive. How does this rank sort of priority-wise for you in terms of that League Cup? I'm not saying he's going to rest players at any point, but if you're trying to manage a squad, if you've got a first choice, do you just play your best team every game possible? Because that's where we tend to go wrong and get injuries.
Yeah, I think if you're looking at it, maybe logically, you're thinking like, right, Roma were a pot 1 team that we drew, right? So we could maybe look at that game as a game that we could drop points off, so we could put less importance on that one, but only if we beat Genk and whoever before. That's the issue. I think we've got, obviously, because it's against them as well. That is the important game. I think to win the League Cup, we're going to have to beat them probably at some point anyway. So whether it's a semi-final, final doesn't really matter. Again, knowing us, we'll probably beat them in the semi, and St Mirren will beat us in the final. Knowing Rangers.
Oh, they get a piece for that. Yeah.
I think the importance will have to be on that game. Yet again, the league, depending on how we do the next couple of weeks. Yet again, the league for a lot of people is done. So is Hibs away as important as potential silverware. You know, we've got to look at it like that. We don't know what position we'll be in, but I think ultimately the Celtic game out of the 3 games there will be the most important by far.
It's interesting because I think Hef touched on the fact Clermont won a trophy before, and Clermont had a really good start, a really poor ending, maybe threw away the league in some people's eyes. But I think when years go by, you'll always remember that Clermont won a trophy compared to some of the other managers who never quite got there. So, if Russell Martin puts not all his eggs, but puts a lot of priority on that game, that could stand them in good stead going forward. But
I feel though it's more credible winning a trophy when you do beat Celtic as well. Though I think that's more credible for me, like in some way, because when we beat Aberdeen in the final, I think it was Hearts semis. So, and I think Beale had a couple of games as well. So I think Clermont only done the semi and the final, if I'm right. I don't even think he done the quarter. So in terms of that, like that's kind of what I remember as well. He managed 2 games and won the cup. It's not really the same as what this would be for me. You're knocking Celtic out, you're getting the full run of it. So it would be a little bit like more of an important trophy, not important, but it would kind of be better for Russell Martin than it was for Clermont in terms of that.
And it's not to be controversial, but we struggled more against St Mirren and Motherwell than we did against Celtic.
Yeah, well,
and that's actually, I'm not even saying that to wind anybody up. I think that we were in a much better position against Celtic and looked like a better team than what we did against St Mirren and Motherwell.
They're the games we enjoy, isn't it? They're the games we enjoy. The games that maybe a team is more expecting to do well.
Aye, maybe.
Just looking forward to us then beating Celtic and beating Roma in the same week. That'll be a good one. Good podcast to build for that week anyway. Hef, just going to finish off. Obviously going to this week now with Genk on Thursday, Livingston on Sunday. They're both must wins in a way, aren't they? But again, we've sort of danced about all night. But if Russell Martin loses either game, is it Martin out again, or where do you stand right now as you sit on Sunday night? Would you sack him tomorrow? Is my sort of overall question there.
No, I wouldn't necessarily sack him tomorrow. I think if what we're looking for is a protest to see better on the pitch, and then we go out and win, then sack him the next day, we've got to question why we didn't just sack him after Hearts. Unless, of course, someone of a decent calibre is lined up to come in and replace him, then fair enough. I could understand that being the reason why we didn't. But no, the Genk, if we're wanting to progress, we need to win all the home games. It doesn't really matter who it is we're playing against. The home games should take care of themselves. And Roma, we've beaten better teams than Roma at home. I'm not saying that that's a shooty-in one either, but again, if we've got any sort of chance of qualifying, we've got to beat the home teams. And Genk, I mean, if we'd have got them the qualifiers, we'd have been sitting washing our hands. Oh, here we go, right? We should get through them and get into our European places. But because we've got this kind of Martin, we don't know what we're actually going to get. Every game right now seems like a mountain that we need to climb, like the Conic. But it nice. could be that, and obviously in days gone by, people would have watched that Livingston game and thought, you know what, nah, like that, I'm not even going to go to that game. That's a dead rubber. We're going to win. And Genk, it's not really a big tie like the Roma one, but we are sitting here debating whether or not we could get 3 points at Livingston and whether or not we could to get a win against Genk. It's wild times, and I think that we should beat Genk and we should beat Livingston, and if we don't, then the question is definitely back on Martin about why he's staying.
Yep, Robert put a comment in just about 10 minutes ago that I starred because I thought it was quite accurate. All we really need to do is just win all the remaining league games. Pretty simple, but that should keep us right. I'll leave us there. It's just about an hour in. Again, just a shameless plug for this. If you're not subscribed, please do. Please like the video. It just goes a long way to help us do what we're doing. We'll be back on Tuesday night just with more of a look towards Genk and what we're thinking at that point. And we'll live from Ibrox after the game with all the reaction, win, lose or draw. But thanks to my guest tonight. Thanks for everyone for joining and have a good weekend. Cheers.